Che que anda con una boina, con una estrellita, con una chaqueta y con una mirada.
In the insurgent world, he is a man amongst men.
Who's Che Guevara? He's like the guy who invented those mojitos.
I mean, some people don't even know who he is, have no clue whatsoever, but they wear the t-shirt, they have the poster and everything, and they have no clue at all.
They may not know who Che is, but they know that guy is cool. Now, why is that guy cool?
I kind of admire his lifestyle. It's really like a punk.
Era un gran hombre y al menos nosotros los cubanos, que es lo que sabemos, ¿no? Estamos orgullosos de todas sus hazañas y de todo lo que hizo, no solo para nuestro país, sino para el mundo entero.
The real truth is that Che Guevara en Cuba mató mucha gente. He killed a lot of people.
His presence is massive.
If I see him on another t-shirt, I'm gonna go crazy. He's everywhere. I'm surprised they haven't made a beer out of him.
Photograph to transform itself into that kind of immensely popular and instantly recognizable form. There's nothing like it.
It's been called the Mona Lisa of photography.
What I'm so moved by and so struck by is the sort of survivability and the malleability, the universality of this image.
It is a great iconic image, probably the most famous photograph of a person in the 20th century.
Que es la imagen más reproducida en toda la historia de la fotografía.
It happened in a fraction of a second. A shutter opened and closed to capture the iconic portrait of an elusive man known to most as Che. Over time, the image has been transformed, gathering different meanings along the way. The photograph would become a graphic. The graphic turned to political statement. Statement be appropriated for art. Then commerce to sell a dizzying array of products, many of which strayed from Che's ideals. And yet, despite the commercialization, the image still recalls the life of the iconic revolutionary. Born Ernesto Guevara, Che left his life a privilege to travel through Latin America in search of a higher purpose, and went to Cuba to bring down a dictator. His life was one of bold choices, violence at times, and defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. Decades later, this single frame, this portrait of Che, still enthralls our modern world. This is a story about the power of a single image. How did this photograph become currency the world over? And what is it about Che's rebellious gaze, decades later, that still inspires young people, artists, designers, and the world's dispossessed to make it their own?
Hay una relación con la imagen que se pregunta por qué diablos esta imagen es la más famosa del siglo XX, porque es la fotografía más reproducida de la historia.
The story of the Che icon is, in many respects, the story of two characters, two very different characters who have been married through history. The first one, obviously, is Che himself. Alberto Corda is the other person in this story.
Alberto Corda era un personaje.
The man who took the photo was originally a fashion photographer. Corda was a brilliant fashion photographer.
Mira, mi padre, él tenía en aquel entonces el estudio Corda.
He took very beautiful pictures of very sexy women.
El estudio de él, yo recuerdo que siempre estaba lleno de muchas personas, escritores, intelectuales, pintores, poetas, iban modelos, iban bailarinas, iban cantantes, iban actores de cine.
You had this fun-loving party. This was the Caribbean celebrating.
God knows he was a man of great charm. He could charm the pants off anybody, and skirt.
He drank rum, he smoked, he was a musician, he danced, he was a tango singer. He was just your absolute life of the party, and in many respects, thoroughly Cuban. I mean, he mixed in a crowd of fun-loving, pre-revolutionary characters, and the whole image we have of Cuba in the Batista years as being this kind of non-stop cabaret, that was Korda's world.
Claro, no todo en Cuba era ni toda esa depravación que a veces se habla de casinos y cabaret y eso. Estaba la dictadura de Batista, que sí era cierta.
Las potencias extranjeras, los norteamericanos tenían muchos cosas aquí en Cuba, o sea, negocios, empresas.
On the one hand, yes, famously the playground of the Yankees, the whorehouse of the Caribbean, but outside of Havana, it was a very rural, very, very poor place where the people were, as they call them, guajiros, or peasants, true peasants.
Momentos muy difíciles, necesitaba ayuda realmente. Y yo veía a aquel señor que pasaba en un MG descapotable, que siempre, casi siempre iba una mujer hermosa al lado de él, y yo decía, ¿quién será esta persona? Yo era, imagínate, un muchacho, 16, 17 años, era lo que yo quería hacer también. Por suerte apareció a través de unos familiares que el estudio Korda necesitaba un asistente. Y Korda no solo fue mi jefe, como yo he dicho, no solo fue mi maestro, fue mi mentor y de cierta forma terminó siendo mi padre.
Meanwhile, in Latin America, a young idealist was traveling the continent with a friend. "Wandering around our America has changed me more than I thought," he wrote, as he came to know the people and their politics. In those days, he was known as Ernesto.
De joven fue infinitamente superior a todos nosotros en inteligencia, capaz, tenaz. El viaje, que tuve el honor, el orgullo de hacer con él, lo marca en primer término en Bolivia, cuando vemos la revolución que acababa de ocurrir. Ya estaba el tren decadente, ¿no? Ernesto, por como viajábamos nosotros, estábamos en contacto con la parte baja de los pueblos, las clases más pobres, y veíamos la miseria, y en el segundo viaje no ha mejorado.
Ernesto witnessed widespread poverty and exploitation on his travels. Having found his calling, he dedicated himself to the poor and the sick.
He began to come into contact with them on his youthful hitchhiking adventures around Argentina into the back of beyond in his own country. And a kind of awakening began to occur, a social and political awakening.
Y tuvo una gran sensibilidad y especial por esa gente.
A lot of his deepest revolutionary convictions come from a sense, in my view, of indignation at social injustice.
As his political beliefs galvanized, Ernesto decided to reject the social systems that created such inequity. "I was filled with the spirit of the beehive," he wrote in the diary he kept on his famous motorcycle journeys. His path would eventually lead him to Mexico City and to a man with whom he would make history.
Yo pienso que él buscaba una oportunidad que para mí se le presenta en México cuando lo conoce a Fidel.
He had just come from Guatemala, where he had gone hoping to be a revolutionary doctor who would cure the poor and the marginalized people's maladies caused by political injustice, to decide that he needed to go to the source. And the solution was to overthrow the political systems that caused that social injustice, which caused those endemic maladies of poverty and misery. He didn't feel that it was the time for compromise. He had seen that in Guatemala, it had failed. Taking power at the point of a gun, now peasants fighting an agrarian revolution to bring about a socialist future, and that appealed to Che. So when Guevara met Fidel in Mexico City, he believed he had found the man that he was looking for, a kind of archetypal figure of what was necessary to carry off a successful revolution in Latin America.
Within hours of their first meeting, Ernesto pledged to join Castro in launching a people's revolt in Cuba. It would take another 18 months, but finally, in November 1956, the volunteers crowded onto the Granma, a small boat that could barely hold half the men. Under the cover of night, they sailed the dark waters towards Cuba.
Hay que ser un poco loco, ¿no?, para subirse 82 tipos en un barco donde tenía capacidad para 20 a pelear contra un ejército, ¿no? Pero bueno, la historia se hace de esos tipos, ¿no es cierto? Si no, de cobardes no se hace.
All of this is the kind of early origin of the Che mythology.
Ernesto the intellectual and poet learned the ways of war, and Fidel appointed him comandante. In the dense Cuban mountains of the Sierra Maestra, the rebels gathered force and dreamt of their new Cuba. Months led to years of struggle against much larger and better equipped forces. He had joined the guerrillas as Ernesto the doctor, but emerged as Che the revolutionary.
Y en la alegría el Pino tuvo que decidirse, o me coge para que el bolso de las medicinas o la caja de balas. Y se cogió la caja de balas. La historia tú nunca sabes qué vuelta le va a dar a la vida.
He chose the ammo box, thus setting himself on the path of the warrior rather than the doctor. Che not only found that he was able to function under fire, but that he was actually unafraid. He had also discovered that he was prepared to sacrifice himself, that he was unafraid of death, and that this was a virtue which helped to make him a warrior amongst warriors. We can see another component of the construction of his legend and of his mythology.
From his stronghold in the wild Sierra Maestra Mountains, Cuba's Fidel Castro emerged triumphant after 2 years of guerrilla warfare against the Batista regime. Now Batista has fled. A new leader is on the scene, Fidel Castro, in many ways an unknown quantity in his politics and policies, but certain to be dominant in Cuba's new era just begun.
En el diario, no se me acuerdo si fue el Nacional o el Universal, y decía abajo, y un médico argentino, Ernesto Guevara de la Serna. Entonces Granado, que también vivía en ese momento en Caracas, vino un día y me dice, mira, acá está este loco, amigo, mira dónde está este. Claro, hacía tiempo que no sabíamos nada de él. Bueno, yo me lleno de orgullo, este es mi amigo, este que está acá es mi amigo, que le queda muy bien en el uniforme y la barba. Entonces él me decía, a veces me miraba y me decía, che, cómo te envidio la barba, mira las vueltas que da la vida, ¿no? Que él me envidiara la barba, es un símbolo mundial y eterno.
El Che se hace una persona conocida en el mundo a partir de la Revolución Cubana. Incluso el nombre del Che se lo ponen los cubanos.
Le decían Che para acá, venir para todo Che.
Che was this new revolutionary identity that he craved to possess. Che actually functioned from that moment on various levels. He was first and foremost the Supreme Inquisitor, the prosecutor at La Cabaña for war criminals. He became Minister of Industries, President of the Central Bank. He was 28 years old. Ernesto Guevara had become Che, this new man who was able to overcome all obstacles in order to pursue his objective, which was a revolution.
I knew about the revolution, I knew about Fidel Castro, because those images of the revolution that were published in Life magazine in 1959, I remember clearly to this day. And I was quite struck by seeing this supposed leader of a revolution, because revolution in my mind was something that was strong and dramatic and involved death and chaos. And here was this person supposedly responsible for a revolution in front of the Lincoln Memorial with his hat off.
Fidel understood the importance of surrounding himself with major photographers, both to make documents of the revolution and of his presence, and to give material that could be used for propaganda.
Y en el año 60, las agencias de publicidad en Cuba en febrero terminaron, fueron intervenidas. Y me quedé trabajando solo en el periódico Revolución, pero ya como fotógrafo. Y ahí nos nucleamos Roberto, Osvaldo, Corda, Corrales, Ernesto Fernández, y empezar a publicar páginas enteras en el periódico, todo lo que pasaba en el país.
Liborio, you know the way Liborio is, and me, we were all the same. We felt that we all had different, very defined styles of working.
También teníamos la costumbre, cuando terminábamos un trabajo colectivo, enseñarnos la foto y escoger nosotros las mejores fotos de todos nosotros para el periódico.
And you can throw them on a table and you didn't have to turn them over. You know whose picture belongs to who.
Porque habían reflejado toda esa parte, que si nosotros no hubiéramos hecho eso, la revolución no existía.
Él no trabajaba específicamente para el periódico. Él, su trabajo, lo que le parecía bueno, lo llevaba al periódico y se lo admitían, o si no les convenía, no se lo publicaban.
Lo principal era el periódico, no la foto de nosotros.
Inmediatamente determinado el acto, la actividad o lo que fuera, corrían a sus estudios fotográficos a revelar sus rollos fotográficos para enseguida imprimirlas y llevarlas al periódico. Porque date cuenta que lo que pasa hoy sale mañana en el periódico.
Pero tú tenías que imprimirla en el baño del hotel. Antes se usaban cámaras grandes y todos nosotros estábamos usando 35 milímetros. Primero que en los periódicos de los Estados Unidos. Sin electrónico, sin motor, con luz ambiente. Usábamos los chorenes que nos dejaba el Instituto de Cine. Pues tuvimos hasta que inventar reveladores. Una química venía de Japón, otra venía de la Unión Soviética, otra venía de Checoslovaquia. Con esas tres químicas tú hacías un revelador. Y así fuimos haciendo todas las cosas de la revolución.
The Niña was the really transition image of Alberto Corda's work from a fashion photographer, commercial photographer, to then dedicating his life to the revolution, because he recognized that this little girl was living without anything. This piece of wood that she's holding here in her hands was her doll. And realizing the inequalities that existed in Cuba, he couldn't justify the work that he was doing anymore. And he sort of left the whole world of commercial and fashion photography because of this one image.
He made the transition from being a fashion photographer to a press photographer, but he kept a lot of his instincts, his natural eye for a certain aesthetic.
Mi padre siempre acompañaba a Fidel, por eso te digo, era fotógrafo acompañante, no fotógrafo oficial. Sin embargo, con el Che no le gustaba que los retrataran.
You know, he used to take the cameras off people and says, let me see what you got there, you know. slide by him, you know, and he did that to Liborio a couple of times.
Te pedí una cámara para verla, para tenerla en las manos. ¿Y no le gustaba que lo retrataran?
My theory is that he was a photographer. He made a living as a photographer in Mexico. And all his life, he always had a camera. I do not know of a photographer that likes to have his picture taken.
I remember the story that he told me of wanting to photograph Che.
Sí. El Che, cuando mi padre se presentó, le dijo, comandante, venimos a hacerle una entrevista aquí, y le preguntó si había cortado caña, que de dónde él era. Mi padre le dijo, soy de La Habana, muy orgulloso que era de La Habana. ¿Y tú has cortado caña alguna vez? Y le dijo, no, nunca.
Che thrust a machete in his hands and said, after you've finished cutting cane for a week, then you can take my pictures.
Es un trabajo muy duro.
And there was Alberto in the sugarcane fields cutting cane for a week until he was finally allowed to photograph Che.
Y ese es el Che. Sí, ese es el Che. Pero el Che era ministro. Y pero hacía trabajo voluntario los domingos y tenía que explicar qué cosa era el trabajo voluntario. Lo hacía como una forma de enseñanza. Y lo hacía los domingos, que era un día libre de trabajo, pero para producir un poquitico más. Pero básicamente como una enseñanza de lo que había que hacer en aquel momento por la revolución.
He was one of the architects of the socialization of the revolution. And to kickstart it, he began programs like volunteer labor, which drove everyone else crazy, especially the people who worked for him or other ministers, because instead of going home to his family on Sundays, he went off to cut sugar, and they all felt that they had to as well.
Filled with the energy of victory, Che, Fidel, and their comrades began to build a new society. But now they had become involved in a larger game, as pawns between two world superpowers.
It was the Eisenhower years of Cold War intensification. The United States at the time was probably at its most imperial. Soviets, they wanted basically to have a thorn in Uncle Sam's side, 90 miles offshore. And all they really wanted was a military base, and they were prepared to subsidize it by buying their sugar. They weren't interested in industrializing in Cuba.
Me imagino que la dirección de la revolución se fueron dando cuenta que se nos avecinaban días muy difíciles. Y de algún modo teníamos que prepararnos para defendernos. Se le compró a Bélgica un cargamento de armas que vinieron en un barco que se llamaba La Cubre. La Cubre entra en el puerto cubano y cuando los obreros están descargando ese barco, ocurre una explosión. Primero no se sabía qué es lo que había pasado. La gente empieza a acudir allí a ayudar a los heridos y a los pocos minutos de esa primera explosión ocurre la segunda explosión. Fue una masacre, fue algo terrible. Gente despedazadas, miles de heridos, que se puede decir que ese fue el primer o uno de los primeros actos de terrorismo contra nuestro país. Al día siguiente se convoca para el entierro de los restos, porque a veces eran restos de personas. Un brazo, una pierna, la persona había desaparecido en fragmentos. Y se improvisó la tribuna allí a una cuadra del cementerio Colón donde Fidel habló. Cuando mi padre está en la multitud, porque él se puso del lado del pueblo, él estaba metido entre el grupo de personas ahí cerca de la tribuna. y de pronto, en lo que él hacía un paneo por los personajes que estaban, salió adelante el Che Guevara en el momento que él pasaba su cámara. El Che como que se asomó a ver aquella humanidad adolorida, llorando por sus muertos, por su pueblo, pero solamente le dio tiempo a hacer 2 fotos, porque el Che llegó, se asomó y él dispara una primera foto, cambia la cámara y tira una segunda foto. Y acto seguido, el Che volvió a irse de ahí. Y siempre le oí la historia a mi padre de que cuando él llegó a su estudio se mete en el laboratorio y revela esa foto con idea de llevarlo al periódico esa noche.
It was just another photograph that he was taking. He was fulfilling a job. The sequence is he takes everybody that's in the Tribune. Bum, 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 bum. One of them is Che. He showed up, bim, bam, he took it, he kept on going.
Publicaron una foto de Fidel que se ve con la bandera cubana detrás y Fidel con 2 cohetes en la mano.
That was an important thing at that moment. Alberto has half a roll of film of Fidel showing the thing because he knew that picture, newsworthy, that was the important one, not the other one. If it would have been any kind of important for him, he would have taken 3, 4, 5. I know Alberto.
Otras fotos de la gente llorando, del momento que venían Fidel, el Che, Dorticós, pero bueno, ya te expliqué que el periódico no la puso al día siguiente. Sin embargo, a mi padre le gustó tanto y le impresionó tanto esa foto, esa mirada del Che, ese dolor que expresaba, y él guardó la foto para sí mismo.
He knew what he had. He knew that he had something really special in that particular photograph. What he didn't know was the impact it would have on the world.
Gorda's photograph was not published the next day, nor for months after that. He carefully filed the negative away. In 1965, like the image, Che disappeared from view.
Che's departure from Cuba it's a long story, but it has its origins in following the Cuban Missile Crisis, when he was extremely angered over the way the Soviets had cut a deal with the Americans behind his and Fidel's back, combined with him losing subsequently the struggle to industrialize Cuba. He wanted to educate Cubans. He wanted to take it to a new level. And in that, he failed.
No matter what he started, he never finished anything. He always went on to something else. And what he left behind wasn't complete.
Because he was not a guy to be behind a desk in a ministry as a politician.
There's stories of him showing up in embassies, you know, full of boots all dirty and stuff like that, and dirty rugs in an embassy and stuff. He didn't give a shit about that. As a matter of fact, I think he did it on purpose.
He was a guy for action. He was a man that wanted to be in battlefields where the workers were. And with 14 guys, 30 guys, it doesn't matter.
He was a man looking once again for a cause to throw himself into.
He was a guy who wanted to be there, opening new ways and doing the tough work that you have to do when you have to open a new door. The Cuba door was open. I don't have anything to do here. Goodbye.
The legend started to spread out that Che was missing. He disappeared, he vanished, and he was every place. As a matter of fact, there were rumors that he was in Vietnam. There were rumors that he was in Africa. There were rumors that he was all over the place.
Parry Match had blazoned it on a full page, a version of the Corder photograph, and nobody knows how Parry Match got hold of it.
Un artículo como preguntando, ¿dónde está el Che? ¿Cómo llegó eso allí?
Well, we start doing our research and we find that in August appears a whole page of the image, not credited, but it's called the Official Portrait of Comandante El Che Guevara.
Y en ese mismo artículo aparece una pequeña foto es una imagen de la Plaza de la Revolución donde se ve la multitud blandiendo un póster con la imagen del Che. No sabemos quién hizo la foto donde aparece el pueblo y aparece el póster.
The photograph was known in parts of the world even before that.
La primera vez que yo vi la foto del Che fue publicada en el periódico Revolución.
It was in 1961, I think. It became in a paper announcing that Che was going to speak at some kind of activity or something like that.
The event happens, but then it's stopped midstream. During the morning, news comes of the invasion from the United States. And Che goes off to defend his new country against an invasion.
But it was a small picture. I don't think it impressed anybody. I don't think it even impressed the people of the newspaper.
A glimpse here, a trace there. It's unclear where Corda's image first appeared. But when Parry Match asked, "Where is Che?" a lone poster is held aloft in the crowd. Where the poster was first published is more certain.
Parry Match with a huge circulation is really immeasurable how far that entered people's consciousness. But as a poster, certainly Feltrinelli is at the beginning.
Feltrinelli was a publisher of Milan, Italy. He had his publishing house. They edited books, posters, and stuff like that.
A radical publisher with very radical politics. He was hot. He was the hot leftist publisher in Milan of that time.
La historia es que vino Feltrinelli a Cuba y Aide llamó a Corda para que le diera algunas fotos a Feltrinelli del Che.
Alberto me indicó hacer esas dos copias y que este señor venía al día siguiente y yo entregárselo. O sea que yo fui el que procesé esas dos primeras copias.
If Feltrinelli wanted that image for a poster or not, I don't know.
Yo pienso que Feltrinelli no era bobo, se imaginaba algo, quería alguna foto nueva de... Y estuvo en casa de Che y creo que se llevó 2 o 3 fotos, entre ellas la de la cara de Che. Y tiró 1 millón de afiches, de pósteres en aquel momento.
Hundreds of thousands of posters, supposedly, which were distributed and or sold, particularly throughout Europe.
Hoy no se sabe si salió primero en Italia o salió primero en mayo de 68 en París.
And what I do know definitely that image was out before Che had died. That I know for a fact.
As to the question, where was Che? He was fueling other fires in the Congo.
El Che no hay que olvidarse que siempre hablaba de exportar la revolución. El Che hablaba de una revolución como un estado de la conciencia.
Ese tiempo, ese año que tuvo el Che en el Congo, casi el año que tuvo el Che en el Congo, nosotros no logramos en todo ese tiempo que tuvimos ni un solo soldado. O sea, no era fácil organizar una guerrilla en ese continente y en ese estado de Congo. Tuvimos que salir, él lo sintió mucho, hasta última hora él estuvo renuente a salir. No quería. Pero inmediatamente que salió, ya él estaba proyectándose hacia Bolivia.
Porque la CIA lo situaba en Santo Domingo, la otra versión de que Fidel lo había hecho matar y estaba sepultado ocultamente, de que nunca había podido salir del Congo. Todas esas versiones se manejaban no se imaginaban que estuviera en Bolivia.
Y fue un fracaso en Bolivia ante un ejército muy pobre, muy pobre. En cualquier país del mundo llega una guerrilla, por muy extranjera que sea, por muy che el que sea, se tiene que defender. Y el ejército hizo lo que tuvo que hacer. Se defendió.
When I read Che's diary of the last few days in Bolivia, I see a man who is, at some level, knows what's coming. Che felt no fear. And that soon became apparent to Fidel, to the extent that he eventually had to assign men to look after Che so that he wouldn't put himself constantly into danger, go to the front, get killed.
Tengo la impresión de él no encontraba mejor muerte como los viejos samuráis del Japón de morir por el honor, por la libertad, por la patria.
Él era un hombre arriesgado, pero no era un hombre que estaba pensando en la muerte, no. Pero esa cosa de él, de estar en primer lugar, de ser el ejemplo, de ir delante en todo, eso fue lo que le costó la vida.
Ese grito que el Che lanza cuando le dice a Terán, a su asesino, apunte bien que va a matar a un hombre. Ese es el grito que escuchó cada persona a lo ancho y alrededor de todo el planeta.
His odyssey in Bolivia and final death, the exhibition of his body, Christ-like in the laundry room of the hospital in Valle Grande, it's biblical. It's like he's like Christ.
La muerte de Ernesto es una cosa histórica, pero tiene un agregado que es mi amistad. Me mataron a mi amigo.
Posteriormente, después del asesinato del Che en Bolivia, cuando se hace la velada solemne aquí en la Plaza de la Revolución, y Fidel es el que hace las palabras fundamentales, las principales de allí, yo recuerdo que esa noche estaba convocada la manifestación y Corda, por supuesto, iba a fotografiar. Y salimos caminando con los equipos por el medio de la multitud, y ya cuando desembocamos en la plaza y vemos que esa imagen está allí, con la bandera media asta que atrás de la tribuna que se hizo, Alberto se viró para mí y me dijo, coño, Chen, mira mi foto.
Y el año siguiente de la muerte del Che se le puso Año del Guerrillero Heroico. Es muy posible que a partir de esa fecha él le haya puesto a su foto el nombre de Guerrillero Heroico. Esta foto era todo lo contrario a esa imagen del Che muerto. Este es el Che vivo.
Esa foto se hace famosa porque el Che lo mataron. Y el Che era en aquel momento una figura revolucionaria en el mundo, que estaban haciendo una serie de revoluciones.
A number of the plastic artists, the painters and stuff like that at the time, did a number of posters here using that image. That was all done in that time, exactly right after Che's death.
Murió un Che, pero nacen otros Che.
One poster in Cuba after his death would multiply into thousands as artists began to resurrect Gorda's photograph. His image was emerging as a universal icon for struggle.
Pero cuando chocó duro de verdad fue cuando mayo del 68, cuando aquella gran cosa de los estudiantes, el mayo del 68 en París, que salió la imagen del Che. Y hizo una explosión.
wildfire, it spreads across Europe from Prague to Paris to Belfast in '68. It's sighted in Vietnam, it's sighted in Washington, it's sighted in Russia.
In the course of the Paris student riots in 1968, the poster as a political medium came into its own very strongly, and the poster became almost an icon of resistance. Not necessarily the Guevara poster, all posters were used as icons of resistance and items of resistance against whatever regime they were resisting. And they were a very effective political medium because they could be mass-produced so easily.
Offset printing, mimeograph, later Xerox, and certainly access to silkscreen became the hallmark insignia of the revolutionary movement.
And of course we believed then that revolution, in one form or another, would be upon us, and Che Guevara was the example and the inspiration.
At that time, everybody was exchanging bits and pieces. So that's how I first came upon anything about Che Guevara. The portrait or the icon, I think I first saw Jim Fitzpatrick did it as a sort of a pop art.
Sartre had met Korda in Cuba, and presumably Korda, as he always did, gave Sartre a copy of his photograph, which he then passed on, and it ended up in my hands, and I turned it into the now famous Che Guevara graphic. I liked Che Guevara. I met him, and he was an immensely personable, interesting, fascinating, humorous man. I saw the photographs of him brutally murdered. I was outraged at the manner of his murder when it came to light a couple of months later. And I felt that Che should be remembered forever, and I felt it was my job to make sure that happened.
I suppose people from my background were drawn to that image because of what Che Guevara was seen to represent.
The poster was copied by revolutionary groups throughout Europe and throughout the world, and they used that image to make money for their organizations. And that's where we see all the versions of the poster coming into being, and it moves from this image, which is directly about Cuba, directly about the life of one individual, to becoming symbolic of political ideologies and about change.
This massive rebellion against authority from students in Paris and in the US and other parts of the Western world. So Che was this force for rebellion, and it was very much, it began at least, as very much radical politics.
Anytime you bring the truth, it's sad. Anytime you're speaking the truth, you're a revolutionary. Che, it was easy to see what he was saying. He said, if you can't get what you want, you can go take it. And that means by, a little Malcolm X in there, by any means necessary. The beret, Black Panthers back in my day, they wore the berets. And still to this day, that means strength and power, and it's something that's cool because the Black Panthers were cool.
There he is. He's long-haired, he's beautiful, he's virile looking, he's angry.
The Vietnam War, the anti-Vietnam War protests were underway. Bob Dylan was beating up a storm, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles.
This very good-looking man with his hair just the right length, with his beard just the right way, lands into the public consciousness at the moment of the hippie movement when hair was in. And so he became this symbol of this liberated youth in the 60s.
So here you have the beginnings of this iconic character being symbolized for different causes at different moments in time, happening at the very time of his death.
The Che image lends itself to being a poster perfectly because it works so effectively, even just as a black and white image. Of course, with the black, white, and red, it's unstoppable.
Pretty soon after that, I realized that the multiplication of the image was in itself an index of his significance.
I mean, the Che image was just everywhere towards the end of 1968.
After the poster came out and people adopted this image as a symbol, everybody took it as being their own. And issues of copyright were very unclear to most people in those days.
Cuba, at that stage, basically rejected international copyright laws.
Well, Fidel was a communist. He didn't believe in copyright. Images were free. Ideas were free. They were there to be shared by people. In some ways, it's completely an anathema, the notion of copyright.
Because the feeling was if you owned the image, if you owned a photograph or a poster, that you had the right then to reproduce it as well.
The Che image was helped in this way because it was free from the constraints of copyright. So you have this sort of multiplicity of Che's. You have all of the creativity that's placed upon this.
I very deliberately made the image copyright free, and that was one of the reasons, I believe, for its instant proliferation. There were a number of versions of it out, including one which was the photographic version, copyrighted to Vetronelli. I made my version absolutely copyright free. Anybody who wanted to use it, and I encouraged people to use it, I wanted it, as I once said, to breed like rabbits.
And it was that kind of multiplying effect, that multiplicity of a Che image, seen again and again on poster after poster, that began to bring it into global consciousness.
Any image that has become important in the photographic history, the history of photography, was made important by the usage that they did of it, not because the photographer wanted it that way, because it was used in a certain way. It was used under certain circumstances, and it turned into who the hell knows what.
It was this kind of singular moment in time that the image first appeared, that a new kind of aesthetic in painting began to emerge. And so the kind of conglomeration of the Korda image with the pop art image, the removal of the chiaroscuro, the tonal characteristic of Korda's image, and turning it into the kind of silhouetted Warholian image. It has a kind of physical openness that allows the viewer to read it in any way that they want.
Everybody can invest their own fantasies in those eyes.
And it applies to anybody. You don't know if the guy is colored, if he's white, if he's Chinese, if he's African, if he's Indian. He looks like everything. He looks like everybody's symbol.
It actually became part of the pop culture all around the world, but it was very pop, even visually at the time.
Well, still, and thanks to pop art also, Mao was glamorous.
Simultaneously, it took all the various kinds of basic stylistic notions of pop and op and kind of hallucinatory images and made it part of that generation.
Because remember, we're also coming right out of the era of James Dean and Marilyn Monroe, and a very impactful point in movie history where all these young heroes, if you want, really made an enormous impact on the world.
And that kind of conjunction between Che and the emerging world of the celebrity is another aspect that begins to place him within the pantheon of the celebrity at the same time that he is a revolutionary.
He's a superstar, and he's a superstar who had a message.
And so the conjunction between celebrity and revolutionary hero begins to happen within the popular culture. Perhaps only Korda, of all the photographers surrounding Castro, could create within a single gesture, within a single face, an image that would represent the kind of aspirations, vision, heroicism, youth, rebellion of the revolution.
Korda was very focused again on the creation of something beautiful, so he crops the photo, and the original photo had a palm tree and the profile of a man on the other side. Korda cropped those out of there and that's to create the beautiful consistency of this portrait. But in the process, he separates the moment from history. That's the work of a fashion photographer, is trying to create something that is beautiful, something that is quite separate from the historical moment. When we look at it, we don't see it and say, that was Che at the Rally of La Courbe. There it is. We don't understand the Che photo as we do, say, the Iwo Jima famous photo from the Second World War, or the naked girl running down the streets in Vietnam. These are located in time and place. They are historical press photos. The Che photo is an artistic creation. It is a portrait. It can be anywhere, and that's part of its iconic power.
And I think that any artist would take great pride in the fact that people adopted an image of yours, an image that you had taken in this case, and just taken to it as a symbol for world-class struggle, as a symbol for freedom, as a symbol for hope.
In the same way that Korda's portrait has become a symbol, freed from its historical moment, the story of Che has moved beyond the man. He has become folklore, a guerrillero heroico, an infallible heroic freedom fighter, lionized in the myths passed down through generations.
Desde pequeño en la escuela siempre ha sido Che. Y me interesé por él porque por las historias y eso que he aprendido de él, y me han hecho desde la escuela de pequeño hasta ahora que he crecido, y han sido grandes.
Si no tuviéramos héroes, si no tuviéramos íconos, ¿qué sería?
When you're little, I mean, growing up in a sort of leftist family, it becomes a bedtime story in a way. what happened, you know, the whole epic of his journeys and how he ended up in Mexico and the whole feat of the Cuban Revolution. It's always an incredible story.
This was a guy who had ideals, who lived by them, very clearly lived by them, and then he died for them, and he died young. I mean, those are the components that make mythologies.
Y si no tenemos héroes, los construimos, los inventamos. Necesitamos gente a seguir. Todos, el ser humano, los bolivianos, los norteamericanos, los chinos, todos.
The myth behind Che and the story has a very biblical feel to it.
And this comparison with Christ actually happened very early, instantly, you might say, on his death.
A esa imagen que para nosotros es casi sagrada, vamos a decir, que es un ícono, que ya incluso ves que hasta en Bolivia lo nominan como un santo, San Ernesto de la Higuera, aunque la Iglesia Católica no lo reconozca.
It's not for nothing that women in Valle Grande celebrate his life on the Day of the Dead and pray to him as a saint. It's the way they can understand him. You know, the man who wandered through the wilderness. We didn't know who he was at the time. We were the handmaidens to his death. There's this idea of collective guilt.
The beret that he habitually wore, including in the Korda photograph, becomes a crown of thorns. The lapel of a coat becomes the wound on Jesus' breast. And the somewhat foreshortened photograph that we have by Alborta, taken in Valle Grande, is compared with Mantegna's dead Christ in the Brera Museum in Milan.
Hasta la victoria, comandante, por mil vidas.
pero un hombre muy, para mí es un hombre muy gigante, muy grande, que hizo muchísimo por la humanidad.
Como todo ser humano, todos podemos en un momento determinado cometer un error. Pero es que en él no había errores. Las ideas de él no eran erróneas ni tenían errores.
No, yo no soy creyente. Pues si alguna vez fuera a creer en un Dios, yo creyera en Che Guevara.
It's a very convenient and beautiful narrative, and all history is written this way. Every country has, and every political movement has its myths and its stories.
Yo pienso que esa foto cambió la vida de mi papá de un modo, de una manera más bien emocional. Por cuanto esa foto no lo hizo rico ni millonario.
He was proud of the image. He was happy that it be used in a radical context.
Y entonces me decía, ¿tú te imaginas lo famoso que me he hecho yo con esa foto? Y yo no hice nada.
One of the things that I think has been quite fundamental in its explosive growth around the world, ironically, is the lack of copyright associated with it. That meant that Alberto Corda, the photographer who took it, who was a believer in the revolution, had to also accept the fact that he would not have any control over this image and would not be able to enforce it if he wanted to live in the Cuba that he wanted to live in. So he could do nothing about it.
Feltrinelli was given print, or 2 prints, as Alberto told me a number of times, and Corda never got a penny from any of that. In fact, the poster itself had at the bottom, copyright Feltrinelli.
How far Feltrinelli may have cheated the author by not putting his name on the poster and not giving any money for it, this is much discussed.
The whole myth that then grew up and that Corda constantly refers to is Feltrinelli made a fortune from his image, and this Cuban photographer didn't make a penny. I don't think that's the case. Feltrinelli was an extraordinarily wealthy man. He was a radical. He'd been in the Communist Party. He supported authors and people of ideas all over the world.
And he wouldn't have sold the poster, as Corda increasingly claimed with some resentment.
Yes, it's true that Feltrinelli did not credit Alberto Corda for taking the image. Did any other photographer at that time, photojournalists, get credited for taking their photographs? No, they didn't. Artists get credited. Photographers during that epoch didn't.
And it wasn't until 1980 that anybody knew that Corda, in fact, was the photographer of that image.
Corda hopefully has made what he deserves, but aside from that, it really is it's a public domain piece, and I don't know if anyone really can say what it should or shouldn't be used for.
I believe it doesn't necessarily belong to a specific person. I think the people as a whole own the image of Che.
The public expectation is that this does not belong to anybody, that Che, in fact, as people often say, belongs to all of us.
From Argentina to Cuba, all the way to Kenya, that's a freedom fighter.
So, in a sense, Che has become someone that everyone can appropriate. Capitalists can, do, and will appropriate him. The Japanese will make snowboards with his image on them. Americans, Cubans, and English and Germans will make T-shirts with his face on them.
Beer, soda, he's on cigarette holders. You name it, Che is everywhere.
In a swimming suit in Brazil, in a zunguinha, which is a little tanga. I don't know how to say that. That had the figure of Che Guevara right in the middle. It's very good, no? It's very fun.
Te lo encuentras en una billetera, te lo encuentras hasta en unas corbatas, en medias de niño me lo he encontrado yo en Francia. Increíble. Un niño que puede tener un año con una media que dice Che y está la efigie de Che. Eso es comercio.
Esta es la imagen del Che Guevara con Bob Marley. Nada, a mí, yo soy un observador. Entonces, todo el tiempo observo y tomo los símbolos y los mezclo y sin devoción y sin respeto por esos símbolos. Si no, no podría hacerlo.
There's many things that, you know, devices that movies, cartoons, everything use as sort of timeless hooks. And I think that Che image has it.
So it seems like we have enough people now. When do we start taking down the corporations?
Yeah, man, the corporations. Right now, they're raping the world for money.
Yeah, so where are they? Let's go get them.
So you have it as an object of humor. You have it being ridiculed on The Simpsons and then in South Park. So it's reinvented constantly. Look at soccer. Look how the Che image kind of manifests itself through sport.
And this is something that has become exacerbated, really, I suppose, by the internet, where it just floats out in cyberspace and is picked up and used and so forth. You have this kind of like license to just head out into the world and just, you know, commercialize anything if you like, and we get this sort of like, you know, this fiesta, this big kind of globalization party.
One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. And like Che said, a true revolutionary is motivated by love. That's right. That's what's up. Anything you want. 5 minutes, y'all, to get over and go.
Es que el capitalismo todo lo devora, todo se lo come, incluso sus peores enemigos. El Che era un enemigo serio, fundamentalista, y creía en eso contra el capitalismo, pero no ha podido contra él. El capitalismo lo ha devorado.
It can exist outside of capitalism as a critique of capitalism in a pure form for a very brief amount of time. The moment it's seen as having any value in terms of cultural currency, that it can be used to sell anything, it will be exploited by capitalism.
Immediately that the people who are in charge of making money realized that there was a possibility, they commercialized the whole entire hippie movement, and you can go to a big department store and you just can buy the symbols that they were using at the time, you can buy the jackets that they were using at the time, everything, and then it's gone. The purity of what it represents actually is the opposite of what we are buying. And that happens now at tremendous speed. Now, a movement, especially the youth movements all around the world, they are metabolized by the system in a matter of sometimes even months. As soon as somebody just realizes that that's what is coming right now, punk, you name it, the X generation, it's gonna be sold to you.
As soon as something resonates, it will be exploited. And that Che image had been exploited, and I felt like my throwing my version into the pot was both participating and sort of commenting on, hey, one more. I had really started utilizing different symbols that I thought had been seen a lot and hijacking them for my own use. My idea behind the Obey Giant campaign was to get people to question everything they're inundated with. My image of Andre the Giant turned into my own icon, and then by manipulating symbolism, by associating my image with the revolutionary Che Guevara image, I felt that that would get people to wonder even more what I was doing or assume that it was revolutionary or important. As the creator of an image like that, you really have no choice but to either decide to participate in the capitalist aspect of it or to boycott that and have someone else profit from your creation. And you can go kicking and screaming and a couple of people will listen, but everybody else will just say, I'm glad I got a t-shirt.
You are a Che Guevara t-shirt wearer, and you have no idea of who he is. You are a Che Guevara
T-shirt wearer and you have no idea of what he did. You're not interested in politics.
I mean, the Che image empire has to be worth so many millions of dollars.
No creo que le hubiera gustado al Che Guevara que se utilice su figura de esa manera.
Entonces, pues yo me imagino que si el Che siguiera viviendo, pues también yo considero que pues también se criticaría esa postura de comercializar su imagen, ¿no?
The very system that he was trying to bring down is the very thing that's supporting his entire his image being manufactured and his memory being remanufactured and copied everywhere.
Ernesto era a veces un poco sarcástico y se estará riendo.
The Che image was a figure associated with leftist protesters, and I always knew that it was associated with those kind of movements and those kind of people. I didn't really know that much about the person, Che itself, until I'd say high school, and that was when I started realizing exactly what things he stood for and what things he did.
I don't remember when, but it's just from the time I was young, I guess the people that I associated the image with were with punk rockers, like young people who were, you know, of the hippie mindset. And that's why his image actually reminded me a lot of Bob Marley. And so I actually thought he was a musician. I'm wearing it, but you have to look at what's under his image, and it's sort of like a play on words. This shirt brought to you by capitalism. Wearing it in this context, it's just acknowledging it's the very system that it is coming from. So in a way, we're reminding people capitalism is the reason why this shirt exists.
It doesn't seem fair to him to turn him into this shallow god with some sort of fan club. You know, it shouldn't be about that. It should be about people who respect his political ideas and not people who just follow him because he looks cool. He is the ideal for kids my age, like kind of rebellious, long hair, you know, cool hippie beard. You know, this is all the stuff that kids my age want to be. They want to be going out. They want to be overthrowing right-wing oppressive governments.
If you think it makes you look like a rebel to wear something that you bought at Urban Outfitters or that everybody else has, you just sort of look lame. I don't think that person on your shirt represents what you believe, unless you believe in violent revolution to overthrow your government and install a dogmatic, Marxist, totalitarian, communist regime where the government tells you what you can think and say, what kind of t-shirts you can wear, what music you can listen to. I don't think that that is what you want. And if it is, that is absolutely the right t-shirt for you. You're separating the image from the man. And I guess other people can do that, you know, who don't have the same heritage as I do. But when I see that, it's impossible for me to separate that.
Well, he has his contradictions too, political contradictions, and the way that he was probably pursuing his cause may be contradicted with the cause itself.
Y el Che y la Revolución Cubana y Castro eran un insulto para nosotros. El Che no significaba otra cosa que muerte, que socialismo, y en ese estatus nosotros no queríamos el socialismo.
Blood shedding was a big part of Che's message. So we now live in a world in which Che is used, as I say, sometimes in a peace march, sometimes it's been used in anti-death penalty protests, all of which, of course, upsets a lot of people who are opposed to what has happened in Cuba and want to sort of resurrect or recover what they say is the truth about Che.
Che Guevara es un asesino. Se supone
que un médico, en vez de matarlo, que tiene que salvar vidas, y él es al revés.
So we can sort of conveniently forget about executions and an armed revolution that seems completely out of touch, really, with the more accepted democratic means of change that are now is embraced by most people on the left.
Now, however, we prefer to see a Che disarmed. There are now doves and flowers and other emblems of peace, sometimes of justice, but never or seldom with the gun.
You know, how can it be that people have transmogrified this image of a totalitarian, dogmatic Marxist and changed that into a freedom-loving, bohemian guy who questions authority? I don't know.
Because I don't think that at this moment that represents the struggle of the people of Latin America. Bullshit. I don't think it represents that. It represents something much more. Exactly what it is, I don't know.
There is a feeling of pride that the figure of Che Guevara, a fighter for basically the working class, made it that far. That symbol trespassed to many different people from many different social classes, too, all around the world. But at the same time, a certain sadness of the commercial use of something that was exactly the opposite.
¿Qué pasa? Que a partir de la muerte de mi padre, la gente pensó, murió el autor de la foto, pues vamos a usarla. Ya, no hay que pedir permiso para usarla. Y no es así. Hay que pedir permiso para usarla. Porque yo quedé como el estate de Corda, o sea, la heredera de su obra.
Corda himself said that he wasn't concerned with people who were making T-shirts and making a few dollars here and there from it, as long as they were doing it with a respect to the image.
Mi padre, por ejemplo, no quería que se utilizara esa imagen en cosas de vicios. Cuando digo vicios, estoy hablando de bebidas alcohólicas, de cigarros o tabacos, de perfumes.
Corda began to realize that many people were profiting from something that he should also have some profits.
As we move through history and we get to where we are now, and Cuba has become more inserted into the global economy, more of a sort of participant of the global economy, and is seeking to sort of benefit from that, you've had a change. It now recognizes international copyright.
It really wasn't until the 90s, towards the late 90s, that he finally did retain a lawyer to go after his copyright for this one image only.
The Corda family has been seeking to use that copyright in a way to enforce what it sees as the integrity of the image, in an effort to sort of protect Che and what he stands for, to prevent it from being used for commercial or inappropriate purposes.
And the way one goes about stopping it is you go after the people, I think, who are attempting to make the biggest amount of money, because otherwise you yourself will end up in the poorhouse.
Sí le molestaba que lo utilizaran en bebidas y en cigarros. La última fue en septiembre del 2000, la famosa demanda que le puso al Smirnoff, que se la ganó. Y me conta que llegó y le dijo a Fidel, te doy $50,000 que le ganamos a los ingleses.
Before that, he had sued Swatch, because they had produced a watch which used the image, and he won that lawsuit.
I never heard that the photographer was unhappy with the way we used the image. I just heard that they wanted money. The image of Che on the Bomb Track single cover was predated by the image of Che on my amplifier. And so the image of Che Guevara on stage was kind of like a fifth member of Rage Against the Machine. That iconic image of Che, in a way, began to stand for the band and that band's politics. The band chose it not because of the photograph. We chose it because it was a photograph of Che Guevara. You know, we just thought this was like a sort of an image in the public domain. When we heard that it was owned by someone, we were happy to pay, you know, we had used it for commercial use. We had sold T-shirts on it, so it seemed like any other image. It was something that we felt, you know, obliged to pay for. But it was, they came after the band aggressively to, you know, to be paid a lot of money.
The Guevara family asked that the image be nationalized and become an image of Cuba, become a populist and free image. And there was a case around this because the Korda estate, the family of Alberto Korda, fought that the copyright remain with them.
Y los abogados, casi siempre los que tenemos, ganan todos los pleitos. Hasta ahora siempre han ganado el pleito porque han pleiteado por una razón muy justa, que es el derecho de autor que me corresponde. Y no es que no permitamos usarla, se puede usar la imagen, pero como una obra de arte hay que pedir permiso. Es un deber de ayudar. Y lo hago con todo amor, pasión y orgullo de mi padre.
They are actually moving more and more towards a corporate model. They are defining the boundaries of the brand. They are saying it represents this and not that.
It's not just a simple matter of, I want to use this image, this is what I'm going to use it for, and it's yes or no. No, every use has its own constraints.
Che is emerging into, as an image, as a participant in global copyright. He's getting his little R.
The only way that logo is going to have power and actually mean something, it can be the greatest logo in the history of mankind. It can be the Nike swoosh, it can be Coca-Cola, it can be the McDonald's M. If what that thing purports to stand for, what that company says that it stands for, really doesn't stand for it, the logo is powerless.
Circula en lo social, cuanto más circula, más significado pierde. Pero yo creo que conserva en el fondo, como patrón, esta idea de ser un ícono de la rebelión, del desafío, el enfrentamiento con el poder institucionalizado.
For me, the image certainly has not lost its power. When I wear my Che Guevara t-shirt, I know what it means, and I know what I mean when I wear it. It stood as a model, an anti-imperialist model. They've got the money, they've got the guns, they've got the power, and we're gonna win. And that's hope and that optimism in the ability of people who do not have money, do not have power, do not have the military behind them, to be able to create a world that's better than the one that we inherited is really what the idea of Che Guevara is all about.
Así como mis padres me legaron el mensaje de que sea libre y luche para hacerlo, yo vengo a la plaza con mis hijos y le transmito. De hecho, mi hijo se llama Ernesto y mi otro hijo se llama Fidel.
Ironically, as much as it seems to have, the image seems to convey many different meanings, at the same time, when somebody puts up a Che poster or a Che t-shirt, we think we know where they stand, at least in reference to the issue that they're dealing with. We know that they are opposed to it. We know that this is a strong position. We know that also that it is one that says, I'm not going to give in.
It's impossible to divorce what's happening in Latin America from what happened previously, any more than it's impossible to divorce what's happening in Ireland at this time from what's happened over a long time. If the world was equal, there would be no need for anybody to fight, to use armed actions or armed struggle, and the world isn't equal.
It's an interesting moment of where this idealism or this search for change is right now, and how it stands also. It's more or less in the same situation as it was 50 years ago, the whole sort of the stressed situation that exists. The difference between the white and the indigenous people and the rich and the poor is very tangible.
Sus ideales no murieron cuando su cuerpo murió. E incluso han vivido cada día más.
For many people who are at the forefront, the movements, the sort of the activists, the radical students, particularly young people, is that there's this sense of empowerment that they get from Che.
Porque él luchó por los pobres. Pues no sabemos mucho de su historia, pero sabemos que él tanto deseó liberar no solo a un país, sino que pensamos igual que él. Queremos hacer como él, que esa semilla que dejó sigue viva, sigue dando fruto. Y pues por eso el Che para nosotros también es muy importante.
They're uber rebels in today's world, and Che is their ultimate icon, and there's a reason for that.
Because the message that was behind Che is still, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because it was a message of confrontation with the system and confrontation with the capitalism and confrontation with a very specific power of the time that is still probably now even bigger than at the time.
The essential thing that is Che Guevara is still in that image, you know, an uncompromising willingness to fight back against unjust authority, to fight back against exploitation, to stand with the poor and the oppressed, and to really, Che did a very unique thing, something that very few humans do. He lived his ideals.
Che is understood to be the face of Icarus, in a sense. He resonates with the deepest of our mythologies. He's the boy who put on a pair of wax wings and said he would fly to the sun, and his father said, no, you can't, and he did anyway, and he died in the effort. He represents the perennial idealism of youth.
The power, the political message, the essence of it is still there. And that's what's so interesting, so rich about it. It's defiant in itself. Che was a defiant figure. The icon is defiant. It just survives. It goes on and on and on.
Lo que nos queda es esa esperanza, ¿no? Y es lo que ha dado el Che con esa imagen de Korda. O sea, el ver hacia un futuro y que todavía hay más cosas por las que tenemos que luchar, ¿no? Y esa imagen de Korda representa para mí en lo personal esperanza.
La historia dispara cuando todo Santa Clara se despierta para verte.
Aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara.
que la imagen da una idea de libertad, de poder hacer lo que uno quiere, de poder ser revolucionario en el aspecto de la vida de cada uno que quiera.
Comandante Che Guevara. Comandante Che Guevara. Aprendimos a quererte desde la histórica altura, donde el sol de tu bravura le puso cuerpo a la muerte. Aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara. De tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara. Mano gloriosa y fuerte sobre la historia dispara. Cuando todo Santa Clara se despierta para verte, aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara. De tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara. Amor revolucionario te conduce a nueva empresa, donde espera la firmeza de tu brazo libertario. Seguiremos adelante, como junto a ti seguimos, y nosotros te nacemos. Hasta siempre, comandante. Y aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara. De tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara. Comandante Che Guevara.